Hi, my name is Dana Schloesser, and I would like to talk to you today about the Brain Behavior Quantification and Synchronization Program, which is through the National Institutes of Health Brain Initiative and is co-led by myself and Holly Lisenby. This effort requires quite a big team of members, which span across the NIH Institutes and centers, offices, and centers, and also spans across the NIH, the Brain Initiative working groups as well, and you can see those in red. So this is truly a team effort. So what is the Brain Behavior Quantification and Synchronization Program, and what are the goals? Well, the goals are to develop high-resolution tools, platforms, and theories that can precisely quantify behaviors as a multidimensional response with high resolution and synchronize these with simultaneously recorded brain activity. We also recognize the importance of these data, and also one of the goals is to build new conceptual and computational models of behavioral systems to which we can establish causal brain behavior relationships. Very importantly, we know in order to do this research successfully, we need to establish a cross-disciplinary consortium to develop and disseminate new tools, ontologies, research designs, and an ethical framework that can transform how mechanistic brain behavior research is conducted. And the impact we're hoping to have, or we think we'll have, is the dissemination of these new technologies, as well as new paradigms to help establish the causal relationships between neural activity and behavior. Also enable the development of closed-loop therapeutic interventions for complex neurobehavioral disorders. Some of those are out there now, but we really want to push that forward and really make that more accessible and effective. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, this all needs to be done on a robust ethical framework that addresses the implications of capturing not just somebody's neural recordings, but basically the individual's entire personal experience. This next slide, it just gives you a little bit of an overview or a visual of how we conceptualize the Brain Behavior Quantification and Synchronization Program, or BBQS. And this is basically taking into account the individual from their neural activity and various behavioral and physiological responses and linking those to brain activity while the individual is operating in the dynamic environment. We understand that the brain does not work or generate behavior in isolation from the environment that we were in. So it is very important to have this very holistic view of the behavior. So the emphasis areas in the BBQS program are represented in these circles here. And you can see these numbers are the NOFOs that are currently on the street. So we have a component that is a human clinical neuroscience component, as well as a component that is organismal behavior. And organism is the broadest sense of organism. So this includes humans as well as non-humans, as well as sensor technology development in order to capture these behaviors in a deep, temporally dense manner. All of these programs, and you can see the overlap and the synergies that they have, are also embedded within a data ecosystem. And we have this data archive coordinating an artificial intelligence center, as well as a data repository that is specific for the unique types of behavioral data that we are going to be collecting, or the researchers will be collecting within this effort. So I talked very briefly about how our team is very much a multi-component, transdisciplinary type of team working across the NIH, but we also want to make sure we're synergizing with the brain portfolio. So as you can see here, we can see BBQS and its association with different RFAs that the Brain Initiative has out as far as behavioral quantification and synchronization for the neural recording and stimulation. So integrating the dense temporal behavioral recordings into these types of NOFOs, as well as brain adding brain behavior synchronization systems for use in animals and human studies. These also, as mentioned, will be in a data ecosystem, and we want to make sure this is also synergistic with other data ecosystems within the NIH Brain Initiative. So looking at the high dimensionality and multimodal brain behavior data in order to mine data and see, these are some of the current NOFOs that are on the street, as well as the new tools for dissemination. So once we get these new tools, theories, methods, models, we want to be able to disseminate these widely to the public as well as commercialization. So there are these integration and dissemination NOFOs out there, as well as these small business type NOFOs as well. Importantly as well is this, the ethical components. And so we do work across the team with the Brain Initiative team, the neuroethics team. So here's a particular NOFO that also would be synergistic with the BBQS effort as well. So now I'm going to talk about the current BBQS program, since we have just gotten NOFOs out on the street and actually gotten some applications back in and reviewed and out to be funded. So the first aspect will be the organismal behavior. So the transformative and integrative models of behavior at the organismal level. The program officer for this is Dr. Holly Moore from NIDA. In this particular effort this particular NOFO or funding opportunity is for an R34. These are planning projects and they're 2 years. And we're basically wanting to establish feasibility and validity and other results that would help lay the groundwork for team science for a future UO1 or a similar mechanism. As I mentioned, it is a planning activity. So to build this interdisciplinary team that is functionally diverse and to bring the science and engineers together and to develop and adapt the sensing technologies and to establish this framework for testable, conceptual, and predictive and statistical computational models. So what would this look like, or how do we see this looking? And I want to note that this slide and the graphics on here was the courtesy of Dr. Shepard. And so this is an example of a type of organismal research that we are imagining for this particular program. So this one is capturing and modeling feeding behavior and its integration with sniffing and respiration in multiple rodent species and primates. So you can see the food handling in the different species over here. And if you can appreciate looking at this diagram, that this is a behavior that does take quite a bit of integration for the animal to do, as far as you have the tongue grasp, you have gripping and biting, and the holding and chewing and sniffing. And so they're looking at these behaviors, which are a very highly conserved behavior. And they're looking at how the jaws and the rest of the cranium and forepaws are coordinated to handle and ingest food. So they're getting a lot of physiological behavioral data, and they're looking at how they can computationally model this behavior, the food handling, and its integration with other behaviors, including the respiration and sniffing against the rodents. Across different rodent species. So this is an example of a type of rich behaviors that we're talking about in this particular program. Another example is, again, this slide is courtesy of Dan Sains, and they're looking at capturing and modeling vocal and non-vocal behaviors in individuals in a very naturalistic environment and a very naturalistic, acoustically complex social environment. So these very cute Mongolian gerbils here are very social. They have these lifelong bonds, multi-generational social structure. Researchers have set up this large-scale naturalistic environment that has multiple levels and areas that they can actually look at how the animals are doing these different behaviors in their different areas of this particular naturalistic environment. And it's set up with cameras and audio equipment to capture all of this rich behavior. So they're doing this long duration tracking of the vocalization and the body movements of the individuals and families, and looking at the auditory cortex with wireless recordings, and really getting a handle on what is going on and what individual is doing what within that and how this maps onto the brain. So very complex, rich data. As I mentioned, the other component that I'm going to switch to now is the human clinical neuroscience component. And the program officer for this is Lizzie Onkadovich for NIMH. And the current NOFO we have on here is an R61, R33, clinical trials optional. And the goal of this is to support the biphasic applications for novel tool and sensor development in the R61 phase, followed by the integration of these tools to establish methods for recording human neural activity in the later R33 phase. Just a few examples of the types of work that we are excited about getting into the program. This first one, again, is a courtesy from Miriam Schnecke, and their group is looking at this multimodal physiological and behavioral sensing and machine learning for decoding mental states. And you can see over here on the left side is an image of the novel hardware and software tools that's going to enable their multimodal neurophysiological behavioral monitoring, as well as machine learning to decode mental states within a naturalistic social processes type of environment and beyond. So the individual would be watching and having these virtual human interactions while their sensors are recording different types of physiological data, including heart rate and skin conductance, as well as cortisol level, as well as recording neural activity, and then synchronizing those things into to get inferred states. And these will also be integrated with self-reports. And you can see the type of data that they get out here, and where they're cross-validating the decoding of the mood and its subscales with their IEEG and the regions that are associated. So very exciting work. Another project that actually is to be funded, and again, this is funded, is through Joshua Jacobs, his group. And again, thank you to him and his group for providing this slide or these images. And the title of this particular project of this grant is Developing the Context-Aware Multimodal Ecological Research and Assessment, also known as CAMERA, platform for continuous measurement and prediction of anxiety and memory states. So again, very much like the slide we saw before, they're trying to decode behavioral states, using this particular platform. And this one, the R61 portion, is going to be continuously measuring physiological signals and test their correlation with anxiety and memory traits. And in the R33, they'll be determining the effect of the closed loop stimulation on anxiety memory states and physiological anxiety states. This one is showing the data inputs to the camera platform with the sensors, the Warren sensors, as well as the smartphone phenotyping and subject tracking and audiovisual arrays. And these are done in real time. And then these are also paired up with intermittent ecological or EMA assessments and a visuospatial task. So now I've talked about the organismal and the human clinical efforts within the BBQS program. Now I'm going to talk about the data ecosystem. And this is managed by Ming Zhan. He is a program officer at NIMH that manages the coordination center as well as the data archives. And the Data Coordination and AI Center is going to be managing these vast amounts of data from the various sensors and sources across different species, all different species, including humans, implementing data and metadata standards, and developing and curating machine learning and AI resources to analyze the data, as well as establishing an accessible cloud-based data ecosystem. They will also be leading the dissemination, training, and coordination of the activities of the BBQS consortium. In addition to the coordination center, there's also the data archives, which there was a NOC put out earlier for the creation of a data archive that is specific to BBQS, very high temporally dense, rich behavioral data. So there will be establishing data standards for the studies, as well as helping to address just challenges within the curation and the tools within the research program. And the informatics infrastructure and tools to be developed under this one are also supposed to not only just be for the BBQS, but also the wider community. This is how we basically envision it. All of the BBQS research projects will be going into the data core that you see here. And these are the things that I'd already mentioned: the data standards, pre-processing, data analysis and computation, and dissemination and training, as well as consortium activities. And they will also be interacting with the Brain Data Archive as well. So what else are we interested in with the BBQS program? The other area that is very important is to be able to capture these behaviors. So we are really interested in these next generation sensors and sensor technology for capturing these complex behaviors. Just this past year of May of 2023, we held a brain behavior quantification and synchronization workshop, and this was led by Yvonne Bennett, who is the program officer over this particular area within the BBQS. Yvonne Bennett is at the National Institutes of Mental Health. So she led this workshop. We had a lot of great attendance and excitement about that. So if you're interested, please go to the BBQS website within the Brain Initiative, and you can actually watch this recording. In addition to the workshop, there was an RFI that was sent out to survey the entire community regarding guidance for opportunities in the development of sensor technology hubs through the NIH Brain Initiative. So what are we talking about with sensor technology hubs? Well, what we're thinking about, or what we're getting information back from the public, is the potential of having 4 to 6 nationwide hubs to facilitate the development of the best practices and oversight for the consortium, and specifically in these particular areas. Sensing modalities, whether it's mechanical, optical, inertial, acoustic, and as well as these design considerations for sensor technologies, which include energy harvesting, the micro versus nanoscale of sensing, as well as quantum sensing design, battery consumption, flexible versus wearable versus rigid sensors, as well as biocompatibility. The other thing also interested in is the location. So this could be anywhere from remote, external to the organism, to intracellular. So we got a little bit of information back, and this is just a very brief mention of some of the things that some of the public have mentioned of being important. And this is developing the hubs as a critical resource to coordinate efforts in helping sensor developers refine designs and users of the technology to understand the benefits of and limitations. The The hubs could also reduce silos across different disciplines, physics and engineers to neuroscientists, and provide critical guidance for use cases. It was also mentioned to consider the wide range of animal models and the need to develop different sensor types that are sized appropriately for the animals and optimized for that particular animal model. In addition, creation of standards and performance metrics for sensors, and creating another neat area identified was creating simple sensor use guidelines and data collection and use protocols that can be easily trained and implemented into everyday user activities. The hubs could also address and recognize that there are multiple grades and user levels across industry and academia. And for example, they standardize the descriptions of technologies when we're talking about consumer grade versus tactical or high-end tactical grade, etc. And also help to provide some longevity to the quality in sensors and sensors data, since we know that sensor companies are high risk and they may come and go, and the software needs to be updated and you need warranty repairs and whatnot. So just they could help tackle this type of longevity of the and quality of the sensors and sensor data. So what have we done currently within BBQS regarding outreach and basically building this consortium that I mentioned at the beginning? So to date, or let me back up and just say, what are we envisioning the BBQS consortium being like? I mentioned that the data coordinating and AI Center will be helping to organize this consortium. But what this would be is bringing our various groups of people, of researchers that are in the BBQS program and affiliated parts of that, whether it's the sensor technology partners, behavioral science researchers, the clinicians and clinical researchers, data, AI, and computer technology partners, as well as the ethicists and advocacy groups, bringing those all together in order to advance the BBQS mission and goals. They will also be helping to support technology platform software sharing and data standards, as well as regularly meeting to discuss issues of shared interests that are going on between the different aspects of the BBQS program, between the human, clinical, and the sensors areas in this data system, as well as helping to address neuroethic concerns in consultation with the Brain Initiative's neuroethics team, as well as the neuroethics working group within the Brain Initiative. So as I mentioned, the coordinating center will be also organizing this effort to help move the consortium forward. We have also done quite a bit of outreach during NIH hosted workshops, and you can see those there. And I had mentioned this earlier. This is the sensors workshop that I had, and the link for that, as well as the 2022 Brain Behavior Quantification Synchronization effort workshop that was back in March of 2022. And also before that, we had these other BBQS meetings that you can see going all the way back to 2017. So this has been a pretty long-standing effort that we have been working on to push forward. In addition, we do have a web presence that I invite you all to check out. There is a BBQS website, which is housed within the Brain Initiative website. We have several blogs on the Brain Initiative site, as well as on some of the partner institutes and centers that we work with, including NCCIH and this IMEG, or Interagency Modeling and Analysis Group wiki that is available. We've been pretty active with conferences and conference presentations to get the word out about BBQS. And you can see an example of some of these. We're trying to hit a very diverse pool since BBQS does work across so many different disciplines. So you can see we have anything from the College of Neuropsychopharmacology to IEEE, which is more for the engineering and the sensors, as well as brain research organizations and informatics. So we're really trying to hit a wide swath. We also have planned outreach. So if this is something that you or any of your groups are interested in hearing more about, I would love for you to contact us and we can maybe discuss this and get your group some outreach and information as well. But currently we have several outreach presentations planned at different meetings that are upcoming, which you can see on this particular slide. With that, I would love to thank you all for your time and attention. And I hope you found this presentation informative, and we would love to hear from you more if you are interested and have questions. Thank you very much.